Chapter 10. Whip and Shotgun. On Monday, February 2, 2004, a new academic year began. It was the fourth year at Rhoda School for our boys. That Monday morning, after the opening ceremony, Gavin, Adrian, Roger and Samantha were sitting next to the great saku tree, completely regenerated just as old Angus had said, a thick trunk about 5 meters in diameter, a brown color full of life. Its robust branches and saku flowers decorated the green forest, which in the distance could be seen as a pink sphere. In the fourth year, in the hall of the house, Professor Freddie Carter was waiting for them to give them a message. He was a tall guy, with dark skin, short hair with a military hairstyle, bushy eyebrows, formal clothing, a tie and shoes. Wear brown. Good morning, young people. I must give you a few warnings before moving on to the usual instructions. I will be with you this and next year. Professor Alvin has taken Professor Silvana's position in the main office, said Professor Freddie. Priscilla raised her hand and asked Professor Freddie a question. Professor, what happened to Professor Silvana? She is on a trip. It will take her some time to return. It is a trip on school business from what I know, the professor answered. Roger, Gavin and Adrian looked at each other again and said, on a trip, said Adrian, curious. That would rule her out as a possible suspect, said Roger. Do you think? Asked Gavin. Well, yes. We'll see if strange activities continue to occur at the school in her absence. If so, I would rule it out and put another possible suspect, said Roger. We'll see what this year holds, said Adrian. Priscilla looked at the boys again and pointed her finger in their ears, telling them to put a lot of pay attention to what Professor Freddie said about the changes in teachers' positions. Samantha also raised her hands and asked a question. Professor, what other teachers were changed from their positions? Only me with Professor Alvin. Not many changes were made. Before moving on to the instructions, I am missing 2 boys. In this room. I don't see them here, said the teacher. Gavin, Roger and Adrian were surprised that Professor Freddie mentioned 2 new house students. Gavin, Roger and Adrian, could you go look for the missing students? It will be easy to find them since they must have the clothes from the House of Jade Clovers. Look for them and give them the corresponding instructions. Oh, look at the time. I have to go now. See you later, said Professor Freddie and left the room. So the trio left the room and began to look for the new students of the house. On the identification sheet that Professor Freddie had given them, there were the photos and characteristics of these 2 boys, Daniel Black and Albert Ulrich. The first is a boy born on November 25, 1987, with dark skin, tall, thick, with a black hat, beard, practicing the soldier discipline. His weapon was a shotgun, revolver, and the second boy was a tall, born on July 5, 1988. With pale skin, long brown hair, and he practiced the discipline of the night. His weapon was a lumber whip. Where do we look first? Gavin asked. I have no idea. The school is very big. We will have to split up, Roger added. What if Brian attacks us again? Or some of his henchmen, or worse yet, some stupid student who comes back to free a creature from some spell book in the library, said Adrian. You're right, it'll be better to go in a group, said Gavin. But where do we go first? Said Roger, a little exasperated. Adrian took a sheet of paper out of his backpack, divided it into equal parts, and wrote all the parts and segments of the school with the help of the map that had been given to him from the first year and told them, we will do a draw. We will put all the names in the backpack bag, and the winning piece of paper will be the place where we will go first, and we will do it that way. We have permission. We will not be late for any class. Great idea, Roger shouted. The winning paper was the one that mentioned visiting the library, so the boys headed to Madame Layla's library immediately. When they arrived at the place, they only saw kids from other houses looking for books in the hallways. Right in the hallway with the letter P, where all the books with that letter were, there were two guys from the Jade Clovers. They had found them. The three approached and the conversation began. "Hello," said Roger, whispering. The boy with the hat with the shotgun, Daniel, answered, "Yes. We are students from their same house. They asked us to look for them," said Adrian. The second boy with the whip, Alvord, in his pants belt, responded, "We will go as soon as we finish our investigation." Investigation? About what? Asked Gavin. The guy with the whip replied, "I don't think you're interested, it's classified," and the guy with the hat added, "I'm sorry, but we can't tell you." So the two boys took two books from the library and left. Gavin, Roger and Adrian, upon seeing the suspicious and strange attitude, decided to follow them, and this took them close to the playground. It was around 10 in the morning, and in the playground, they found both boys walking again, so they decided to follow them again, since it seemed that they were heading towards the Fudblaze field. Stealthily, Gavin, Roger and Adrian, in the distance among the bushes, observed what the two were doing. They both put library books on their backpacks and talked about a specific topic. Gavin began to approach them carefully. The boy took his whip, made a movement and threw some rocks towards the sky, while the boy with the hat, with his shotgun, fired towards the rocks. But a reflex barrier deflected one of the bullets and it impacted him, causing him to go into a state of petrification. Roger, Gavin and Adrian were surprised to see that and ran to help the boy. Alvord released his whip and went to help his companion. The three arrived at the scene. Gavin took out his backpack and gave the hat boy an antidote, making him completely recovered. "Are you okay?" Gavin asked. "Yes, thanks for helping me," Daniel Black responded. "That was a very risky training. If you had been alone, you would have died," Roger said, for some strange reason. "My bullet, it bounced off a reflex magic," added the boy with the hat. "Maybe someone was here practicing a duel a while ago and the reflex didn't dissipate," said Adrian. "I see they know a lot about duels," said the boy with the whip. Roger curiously approached where the books they had brought from the library were and took one and began to read it. "Are you looking for information about the prophecy?" asked Roger. "How do you two know about it?" asked Gavin. "We've been searching about it for 2 years. But wouldn't it be better if you introduced yourself first?" "My name is Adrian," Adrian answered kindly. The boy with the hat stood up and said, "You saved me. So, out of courtesy, I am Daniel Black. But you can call me Black, and this is my friend Alvord Ulrich." It's a pleasure to meet you," said Daniel Black. "Nice to meet you," said Alvord. "My name is Gavin." Gavin introduced himself. "I'm Roger," said Roger. "We were traveling for 2 years, finding out things about the prophecy in other places. That's why until this year we sent our admission to the school and here we are finally," said Black. "Wait, Black, first, what do you think if we have a duel with one of you? Any of you against me? If you defeat me or the duel is intense, we will tell you everything we know, otherwise we will not be able to trust you," Alvord commented. "I accept. I will do it," Adrian said bravely, and Alvord, seeing Adrian's attitude, took his whip and threw the vine towards him. But Adrian blocked it with the ring on his wrist. "Let's the battle begin," Alvord said between his teeth. Adrian prepared himself, and Alvord began to whip the whip quickly. Daniel and the other boys sat on the grass watching the duel, while Gavin opened a bag of sweets to eat. While witnessing the duel, Adrian, after dodging all of Alvord's whips, used his special ability and stole his whip, but Alvord, cooler than a lettuce, smiled and made a summon. The atmosphere became a little dark and Alvord put his hands together and bowed. In the center of the field, a black hole appeared and from it, a subject with a black hood and chains ascended. It was Boron, one of the celestial deities. Daniel Black, arms crossed, smilingly watched the duel, while Roger was amazed. Impressive, it's the Boron summon. How did they get it? I'll tell you in a while, said Black smiling. Adrian was surprised to see that he was facing a summon, and Alvord said, Master of Darkness, help us. Boron released a curtain of black costarica smoke over Adrian, making his visibility impossible. Adrian remained motionless for a while, until he came up with a plan, and he launched a shower of explosives from various places, causing Boron to lose a lot of energy and vitality. Unluckily for him, Boron charged up his special attack, the Dark Chains of Pain, and attacked Adrian. The smoke was clearing, and to everyone's surprise, Boron missed his special attack. Adrian had used Alvord's whip to climb a tree and avoid the attack. With the explosives he created a false illusion that he had been hit. It was an excellent strategy. This impressed Alvord, who made the decision to dispel the summon, and the duel ended. Impressive, very impressive. I noticed that you look powerful, but I never thought that you were also great strategists, said Alvord. Unity is strength, said Roger. When I felt cornered by the costarica and the summoning in front of for me, I quickly thought of something to get away from the place. I knew that sooner or later Boron would make his special attack. By the way, how did they get the summon? Said Adrian. It's something I'll tell you later, said Alvord. It's great how you summoned her. We were all amazed, Gavin said while touching Alvord's shoulder. Hey, are those Carmine's donuts? Asked Alvord when he got a craving after seeing Gavin eating some sweets. Yes, I bought them at the Hallmark's candy store in the Central Market, Gavin answered. Save some for me on the way while we go back to the library. There, we'll tell them everything, Alvord said happily. Adrian, Daniel, Gavin, Roger and Alvord returned to the library. They all ran as it was starting to rain, took a table that was in a corner section with a window next to it, and began to talk about the prophecy. Well then, what do you know about the prophecy? Asked Adrian. Well, we will be brief. As you know, we were traveling for 2 years. We went to the Temple of the Painted World Dreams of Euphrates in the district of Brehindorhofia. In one of his portraits, has a passage to the dark dreams and the world of darkness. There we obtained Boron. We looked for him to give him the offering. We have followed all this with an old book that appeared in my home. I think it belonged to someone in my family. And where do you live? Gavin asked. Green Hills. I live on 43rd Street, Alvord answered. Green Hills. I live on 28th Street, Black said. Great, the three of us are also from Green Hills, Roger said. What we know little about the prophecy, about the witch and what she wants to do. We don't know who she is or how she has manifested herself, but we have some hypotheses to add to what you tell us, added Black. Do you know about the orbs? Asked Gavin. Orbs? Said Alvord surprised. Gavin told Daniel and Alvord about the orbs, which were necessary to advance in the course in the 6th year, emphasizing that they already had the yellow one in their possession. The purple and the silver. That's something we didn't know. I think it was good to have gotten together with you. Is there anything supernatural that you have experienced in the last few days? Said Alvord. It's another theory we have, said Black. Supernatural? What do you mean? Asked Adrian. Some kind of enemies, creatures that have appeared in the last few days, months, years. Black explained. Something powerful and evil that you have faced? Asked Alvord. In the first years, we have had to face ghosts at school, in the bathrooms, in the Green Forest, and also outside of here. The year before we faced a phantom menace, a creature called the Cry Maiden, added Roger. Oh, I was afraid of it, said Alvord with concern. And have you noticed strange or suspicious attitudes from people from other houses or people outside the school? Black asked. A few years ago Roger and I had to have a duel with an old grump from Green Hills, Gavin argued. And it's worth mentioning how strange the Scarlet Eagles and Brian Bulworth's troglodyte act, Adrian added. Were those people acting strange? Black asked. The Scarlet Eagles always, in fact. It is said that the witch was the founder of the school along with other people, and she created the House of Eagles, Gavin added. That explain why they do, said Alvord, annoyed. Did those people you mentioned notice their yellow and red eyes? Asked Black. Oh, I think I've seen those looks, said Roger thoughtfully. They were people possessed under the effects of an evil spell, explained Black. The prophecy says it very clearly, said Alvord while showing the passage from a book. Yes, we knew that. But how is that possible? Asked Adrian. The prophecy says that the witch advances, prepares her army, people will disappear. Others will act under her power as puppets to carry out the tasks she entrusts to them. Very few people can be trusted, Black added while reading the passage from the book Alvord was holding. And what about the Cry Maiden? Does it have anything to do with it? Does it belong to the witch? Gavin asked. In fact, in another book we read, it said that the witch had the power to return to this world people or creatures that had already died. I have read the legend of the Cry Maiden, who walks through the rivers under the light of the moon looking for her baby. That legend has existed for many years. In conclusion, the witch must have brought her back to life through her evil powers, Black argued. That would indicate that more dead or extinct creatures return in the form of spirits. Ghosts or physical persons to cause problems, said Roger. Not only cause problems, since many people cannot see these supernatural activities. Many have their soul completely served to the god Eshin. The prophecy said that the heroes of that time were believers, but very little faith in their soul, not completely. That helped them not to be possessed, said Alvord. We have a friend named Priscilla who is an ally of our group, and she knew part of the prophecy, where it indicated that the witch would know the existence of the new rebel group that would fight against her and prevent her plan of supremacy, Adrian said. That's why we must obtain the orbs, Gavin said while showing the other orbs that they had obtained. About that, what were you doing in a duel with the Cry Maiden? Alvord asked strangely. Doing a task at the school, and we found her by surprise, but there, we were able to obtain an orb, said Adrian. It makes sense. That means that the Cry Maiden was the work of the witch to confront you. At this moment she sees all your movements, and wherever you go, there will always be something to fight against, said Black. And not only that, there could be teachers under the spell, causing them to send you to those places to end their lives, Alvord added. Join us, so we will be stronger, said Roger as he extended his hands to the other boys. Our group grows, with your powers, knowledge and abilities we will be stronger, said Adrian while also extending his hand towards the boys. Count me in, Black responded and gave his hand to Roger and Adrian. Alvord looked thoughtful, and Gavin looked at him and said, join, and I promise there will be more Carmen donuts. Alvord replied, I think it's an offer I can't refuse, ha ha ha. Alvord Ulrich and Daniel Black had joined the team. At the end of the day, the boys gave them the instructions that Professor Freddy asked them for and they went home. Months passed. It was July 14, 2004, one morning, in the classroom of the Jade Clover House. Alvord and Daniel have news for the other boys, so they meet Roger, Gavin and Adrian in the cafeteria. Once in the cafeteria, the conversation begins. We wanted to show you this, said Alvord. On our trip in the portrait of Euphrasis painted Dreamworld Temple, we found it, said Black while pointing to Alvord a backpack. Alvord took out a black sphere from his backpack. It was the black orb. The day you showed us the other orbs, we finally knew what this mysterious object was. We had it stored in my home, said Black. Keep it, said Alvord as he placed the black orb on the table. How did you get it? Gavin asked. Great, we would only have 6 left, Adrian said with joy. When we managed to obtain Boron's summon, we found her in the same room where he was, next to his statue, Black explained. Destiny knew that you should know us. Now we are a more powerful group, said Roger happily. The boys began to have breakfast in the cafeteria, when a few minutes later, Samantha appeared to give them a message. Hello guys. Professor Freddy wants seeing them in the classroom after the break, has a message for you. The break ended, and everyone returned to the classroom to wait for Professor Freddy and see what her message was. Good morning young people, I need to give you 2 messages. The first is from Professor Darrell and Professor Cindy. They indicate that registration is now open for the Fudblaze Cup tournament of the schoolhouses. So there is a lot of expectation this year by the Jade Clover House team. Start recruiting your team members and don't forget that registration will close on August 10th. The tournament will be all day at the Fudblaze Stadium on Saturday, August 27th. Good luck, said the professor and then continued. The second message is that I wanted to ask Roger, Gavin and Adrian for a favor. The previous year they successfully completed a category, a task assigned to this house, and we wanted them to do it again. And what would it be, teacher? Gavin asked. We sent an 8th-year boy named Taru Gambin, from Jade Clover House, with a Category B assignment to the swamp of New Riverville, but he has not returned or given any signs for days. Could you go there and investigate his whereabouts? Answered the professor. Sure, no problem, said Adrian. Roger whispered to Gavin that he would not believe that there he could find another orb, since 2 years ago when they went to Alice's cabin and had gotten the purple orb. And when should we go? Gavin asked the teacher. Right now, please. I want to ask you to go with the new kids, Daniel Black and Alvord Ulrich. They will be graded for the category assignment, said the professor. Hours passed and the 5 boys headed to the district of New Riverville by train. After a few hours, they arrived, and in that place Alvord had a mystery. Hey, what if the witch is planning this, to send us to these? Alvord asked insistently, as did Roger. I was thinking the same thing. They sent them here again, said Black. I had that theory now that we were on the way, but we just have to face it, he said. Roger, oh. Shut up, Roger. You've said since the first year that everything is a possible trap. Well, anyway, exactly where is the swamp? Said Adrian with disdain. Shut up, you fool, said Roger. According to the map, the swamp, it's crossing the Drusha forest. Gavin burst in to point to the place on the map. Let's go, Black shouted. The 5 boys began to walk along the path that led to the Drusha forest. A wide street of black cobblestone, palm trees and trees of all kinds on its sides, and above these, you could notice the blanket of clouds, and the fog hugged the mountains and hills that could be seen above the treetops. After walking for about 20 minutes, they found a waterfall. Its flow was enormous, it shot crystal clear water, and when it fell into the river, it turned light blue, which this river was nicknamed with that same name by the natives of the place. Since the mineral nutrients and components of the crystalline water were what gave the river its sky blue pigmentation. After advancing after the cascade and the Blue River, they arrived where the swamp was. The path was beginning to get muddier and the quicksand was noticeable in certain places. Listen, take some of the antidote that everyone brings in their backpacks. The swamp is a few meters ahead, said Adrian as he took out several antidotes in small glass vials from his backpack. And why are we going to waste an antidote if have we even been in a duel? Asked Roger. The swamp contains poisonous thorns, and also the consistency of the mud releases poisonous and toxic enzymes, explained Gavin. It is best to take it at once, so we will have a duration of immunity of an hour, said Black as he opened his bottle and took the antidote prepared by Adrian. The rest took the antidote and entered the swamp. After walking meters, and the mud began to reach their heels, They found another flow of the river, but it was no longer celestial, where on top of a stone a human body could be seen in the distance. "Look at that!" Black shouted, pointing towards a rock. Could it be Taru? He was dead, but unconscious. Taru was a tall, dark-skinned boy with a thick, military hairstyle. Roger asked for help to get him out of where he was and together to transport him to dry land so he could give him a recovery potion. When Daniel tried to lift Taru, a huge crocodile about 10 meters long came out of the swamp. "But what the hell is that?" said Gavin, surprised. "It's huge," shouted Alvord, a moss-colored crocodile with sharp teeth and yellow and red eyes, prostrated himself on a stone, and was ready to fight with boys. Roger stayed with Taru on one of the stones, so Alvord, Daniel, Adrian and Gavin fought the crocodile. The crocodile used its enormous and powerful bite to make the swamp raise mud and hit the 4 boys, however. Thanks to the antidote they had given themselves minutes before, they were immune to this attack. Gavin gave Alvord the first turn to attack to see his powers. He readied his whip and threw it towards the crocodile's mouth, hitting it and turning it over to leave it face up. After moving its limbs, it returned to its 4 legs. The crocodile prepares to attack again. Its snout began to lower towards the swamp, and when it pulled it out again, it fired a strong attack from Aquara that was quite powerful. Then Daniel fired a hit with Darknaga with his shotgun to effect a state of blindness in the eye right of the crocodile, which now he could only look with one eye. That made him lose his turn. Where here Adrian took the opportunity to steal some scales from the crocodile. Then, the crocodile was again ready to attack and tried to launch a bite at Gavin, but he dodged it, since, with his right eye completely blind, he miscalculated the movement of the bite towards the object, and Gavin took the opportunity to launch a tornado of electricity with the boomerang. But it was useless since the crocodile is immune to electricity attacks due to its consistency with mud. The crocodile again attacked the 4, but this time with a movement of its tail. The 4 fell but got up again. Daniel took his turn to launch another Darknaga bullet with his shotgun. Leaving the crocodile completely blind, he lost his turn. Which made Gavin and Alvord launch a joint attack with their boomerang and whip to turn him upside down, and Adrian threw some explosives into his mouth. While he had several explosives in his snout, Alvord used his special attack, and with his whip he managed to completely tie up the crocodile, lifting it into the air for a few seconds. Taking the opportunity for Daniel to use his special attack called the Rain of Bullets, causing Adrian's explosives to explode, and thus the crocodile exploded into 1,000 pieces, giving the victory to the boys. "Did you see his eyes?" "Just like we said," said Black while reminding them Tofos about the yellow and red eyes on the enemies. "They were yellow, right?" Gavin asked. "Yes, it was controlled by the witch. She knew of our presence here," said Alvord. "I think she's been setting traps for us. Like I've been telling you. Stubborn ones," Roger insisted with annoyance. "And I'm sure that someone at school is being possessed by her. I can assure you that next year they're going to kill us." "Send again to a category a task," said Adrian. After finishing the duel, the boys took Taru to a safe place and administered a recovery potion. Taru regained consciousness and asked who they were. Alvord told Taru everything that had happened and why everyone was there. "I thank you very much. So the school sent you to look for me?" Taru asked. "That's right, but what was the assignment they sent you?" Gavin asked the boy. "They asked me to bring some things to a native who lives upriver. His name is Yed. But I started to feel tired, I lost my senses, so I fell asleep under the shade of some trees. It seems that I was unconscious for 3 days," said Taru. "I imagine that the crocodile. I'll take you to the stones so that when I'm hungry, I'll have dinner for you," Black said with a sarcastic laugh. "Well, we have to go to school. Mission accomplished." "Yed's home?" Taru explained. Let's go, there's no rush. So we could investigate the place more, Alvord said, and the boys told Taru what they wanted to investigate in the place in addition to accompanying him. Now that they're talking about those glass spheres or orbs, before I fell asleep, I remember seeing one in the river. The current carried it, it must be at the end of it, said Taru. Let's follow the river, he shouted Black as he pointed and ran upstream. After walking a few minutes, they arrived at the home of native Yed, a young man with reddish skin, a feather veil, black hair, mint-colored clothes and moss-colored pants. What do you want from me? Asked the native. The boys did not understand very well what Yed was trying to say. His way of communicating was not the best, so Taru tried to talk to him. We came in peace, this is for you. Taru explained. Peace, what is it for me? Yed asked. Taru left the bag with things that had been given to him at school on the floor to Yed. He approached, took it and opened it and looked at the contents. Yed smiled and gestured with his hand for them to enter his home. The 6 boys entered Yed's home, a conical house, with feathers on its roof. The walls were made of straw and worm silk, which made it very rigid and prevented water from penetrating the walls. After an hour of talking with him, eating and drinking some drinks that the young native had given him, it began to rain. But thanks to the good architecture of the home, the rain did not penetrate anywhere. Daniel was curious to see that Yed on one of its walls had heads of different animals and creatures. Weapons of all kinds such as bows, arrows, axes, masks, stones of all shapes and spears. But what caused most curiosity was when Taru told the boys to look at the altar with gold pieces that Yed had. In it was a white sphere. Hey, isn't that one of the spheres you're looking for? Taru asked. It is. It's the white orb, Adrian shouted, pointing to where the orb was. And now what do we do? How do we ask for it? Black asked curiously. Gavin stood up and went to the altar, and took the orb. Yed stood next to him and said, Precious sphere, be mine. I will find in the river. Taru mentioned to Yed that the boys were in search of the orbs and they were interested in the one he had in his possession, but Yed did not agree to give it to them. Everyone was upset and crestfallen upon hearing the native's refusal. Minutes later Yed took the orb and stood in front of Alvord and said, You, me, a duel outside. For the precious crystal, I accept the challenge. Alvord answered, getting his whip ready. If you win, give you precious crystal. If Yed win, keep it. Yed added, as you say. Let's begin, said Alvord, who was preparing to make the first move with his whip. Everyone left the house, and Yed and Alvord would face each other in a duel. Yed with his axe made a call with a whistle, and summoned several forest animals, a bear, an eagle and a wolf. Alvord first faced the bear. This powerful bear took the whips of his whip, for which he received little damage, so he decided to attack the eagle, and it easily dodged them despite the length of the whip, and finally the wolf, if he was defeated by the power of Alvord's weapon. Then the eagle and the bear attacked him. Alvord had no choice but to use Boron's summon and brought it into combat. What is that thing? Yed said, surprised to see that figure with a black cape and chains, and Alvord answered, You summoned animals from the forest, I make a summons too. Boron's summon was already ready for combat. The attacks of the bear and the eagle could not harm him, so the summon responded with a Psykarga attack on the eagle, and it began to attack the bear, and the bear received an attack from Bersaka. So he went crazy and started attacking the eagle. When both were about to be weakened, Yed readied his axe. But Boron already had full energy to make his dark chains of pain special attack and took the 3 in a black cloak, the chains turning the black cloak around, creating pressure strong enough to suffocate anyone. And finally, the animals summoned by Yed were defeated. Alvord had won the duel. Yed stood up, and gave his hand to Alvord, and said, "You're being strong. You're winning precious crystal," and with his other hand he gave Alvord the crystal orb. Only 5 orbs were needed. Before leaving, Yed told them about a lamp that was near his home, and they all went to take it to return to the school. Yed told them that, if he ever needed help in his village, he would contact the boys.